Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's design talk from the Midas Touch, where we are looking at the subject of the challenges of designing for a small or a large area, a kitchen for a small or a large area. This is a topic which I personally could probably talk about for hours and hours. I'm sure that you all have lots of questions and I'm actually hoping you have lots of questions, because there is meant to be a Q&A at the end of this session. So if something stirs you or you think of something, please do jot it down or remember it for the end of the session, because I'd love to take those. It'd be best if you can do these using the chat facility rather than actually by unmuting, because if we unmute a lot of people, then there can be a lot of background noise, people talking over, etc. So if you can use the little chat button and pose your question, even if you think of it during the course of this talk, then we'll gather all those questions and see what we can do to answer them either now or at some other point if there are too many for tonight. The other thing that would be of great interest to me is how many watching are looking at the challenges of particularly small kitchens, and how many watching are looking at the challenges of a large kitchen. It'd be nice to know what the balance is of people that are watching as well. So that'd be great if you can just put small or large in your chat box as we get going. So welcome to tonight. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at photographs tonight. Essentially, as you know, every space within a home that's created for a kitchen living area is totally unique. Even if you have a building which is identical to your neighbours because you happen to be in a new build and you happen to be exactly the same as the terrace next door, your space is going to be unique to you because you're the one who lives in it, and you're going to personalize it, and you will have habits, lifestyle requirements, and number of people, pets, ages of children, heights, differences that are totally unique to you, and therefore your kitchen must be different than everybody else's. And with this comes a challenge of its own. So finding the unique fingerprint for your kitchen is really important, and the difference that makes as to whether it's a small kitchen or a large kitchen poses really unique challenges, and this is what we're going to have a really quick look at tonight. So I'm going to start with the small kitchen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some of the do's that I feel are essential when you're looking at a small kitchen area and designing for a small area. And then I'm going to present a whole load of photographs and take you through those and pick out things that I feel are significant in those photographs. So some of the photographs I'm using are from the thematic brochures, and they're in their studio in Germany, so they're really magnificent, wonderful brochure shots. And some of the other shots that I'm going to use tonight, I've actually taken from Pinterest. It's a great form of resource if you're looking for ways to use large and small spaces. But I'm drawing them from Pinterest, and so that I can make sure I give credit to the people who design those kitchens rather than you think that I have. You'll see these pictures are smaller, but they have got the information there behind it. I'm hoping that they're big enough for you to see. So let's have a first look at small kitchens. So over the last 16 years, I've been talking to people who've got both large and small kitchen areas, and top on the list of things for people who've got small kitchens are these things. So storage is first. It's like when somebody comes to me with a small kitchen, they are crying out for space to put things. It's not a TARDIS. We can't walk into this space and automatically enlarge the dimensions necessarily. We do our best by looking at other spaces in the house, but essentially what we need to do is maximize efficiency in this area by creating great storage. Sorry, it's beeping at me every time. The next thing is worktop space. It's all very well having lots of water ceiling storage, placing your ovens in lovely banks so that they're out of the way, they're nice and ergonomic. But if you then haven't got anywhere to plate anything up, or if you're sharing, say, one long run with your sink and your cooker and have absolutely nowhere to do the prep, that's a difficult position, and we want to try and avoid that as much as we can. The next thing a small kitchen space often has awkward angles and appliances. Appliances are coming from everywhere, so you may well have the tumble dryer or washing machine in your kitchen. You might have to keep your vacuum cleaner, your broom cupboard in there. You may have a boiler housed in there. In fact, I would say the majority of small kitchens these days seem to have the boiler end up in the kitchen. So if you can't come to us with an alternative, i.e. you're still in the build stage and we can actually move the boiler somewhere else, we're often stuck with having one of the wall cupboards which needs to have a space to house the boiler inside. Or maybe the boiler's even been put on a very awkward place. The angles of the room may include a soil pipe, because it's quite likely that they're using walls to bring pipes down, and it comes right through the kitchen, straight into the kitchen for the sink use. And you might have corners or angles that are jutting out or moving into other areas of the house. So awkward angles and appliances are something that is important to look at in small kitchen spaces. And finally, the other key thing is room for two, because small doesn't necessarily mean it's just owned by one person. There are lots of houses, even the old Victorian terrace houses, where people haven't been able to open them up completely. We have small kitchens in comparison to the rest of the house. And these spaces are often used for families. So how can we ensure that there is plenty of room, if possible, for more than one person to move around in this small space? These are the kind of things that we're going to have a look at in some of the photos that I've got this evening. And this is what every home owner with a small kitchen says to me: can you make it feel bigger? Bigger because there's a sense of when it's bigger, you can actually, it's less frustrating. There's obviously more space to use, but just the fact that it looks bigger is one element. But we need it to be efficient. We need it to be working to its maximum. And when we don't have the luxury of, when we're with a large kitchen, being able to say, oh, well, we'll just put Tupperware in this cupboard, and we'll put the oven to tableware in this cupboard, and this can be for special cereals cupboard. We're really looking at how we can make every cupboard, every nook and cranny, every work surface really play its part. So here are my top do's for small kitchens. The first is to create a single area of focus. This is one way in which we can stop our kitchens being cluttered up, I suppose visually to start with. And if we start with a visual, it's amazing the psychological difference it makes when you can have a simple lined kitchen rather than a fussy kitchen. By creating a single area of focus, our eye is perhaps not looking at what the tiles on the splashback are doing at the same time as how lovely our bank of units are, at the same time maybe window dressing, looking onto a garden, or any other feature that we might want to bring in, patterned tiles or fussy worktops, all kinds of things that we could walk into a kitchen and look at. And by reducing the number of things that are creating our eye to focus on, will enable this kitchen to automatically feel bigger and calmer and more pleasing to work in. Simple lines are part and parcel of this, so do use simple lines, and some of the photographs that I've got coming up will show you what I mean. I'll explain visually what these simple lines actually look like. Really important, because that will aid symmetry, and for those of us who like to be tidy-minded, who like symmetry, and actually I would say that probably over 75 to 80% of people who are designing their kitchen, be it large kitchen or a small kitchen, prefer symmetrical shaped kitchens or kitchens with some form of symmetry to those with asymmetry, or ones that haven't even had a consideration in regard to symmetry at all. So simple lines are really key. I've put here the next point is to minimize the number of finishes in the kitchen. So again, you'll hear from what I'm saying, it's all about reduction. We don't want too much fuss and bother. We don't want the eye to work too hard. We don't want to be thinking too much about what looks right and what doesn't. And so choosing just perhaps one key color, accent color, or keeping it in neutral and just having perhaps a wood effect with a neutral colour is absolutely the perfect thing to do with a small kitchen. The more different finishes you have, the more complex your kitchen is going to look, and therefore the smaller it potentially has in feel. So the psychological aspect of this is quite important. We're going to have to prioritise in a small kitchen. It's not always possible, as I said, it's not a TARDIS. It's not always possible to have the dishwasher and the tumble dryer, or to have the hob, a domino hob, you know, with a gas induction and teppanyaki. It's just not going to be possible in a small kitchen. It may be simply that you have to decide whether you're going to have shelving or wall units, but the important thing is that you are able to prioritise the things that will do a few things. One is make your life easier, serve you well, and give you joy. These are how you prioritise. So when you're asking yourself the question, would I rather have this or would I rather have that? For example, would I rather have a draining board that is permanent, or would I rather have extra chopping space on my worktop by having a mobile drainer? And the way you answer that question will obviously lead us to be able to help you the best when selecting the right products for you. So prioritization is going to be really important in a small kitchen, as is the use of clever storage systems. It's just not good enough for a kitchen to look good on the outside, and then you open the doors or drawers and you're just let down by having to move everything out of the way, replace everything, take it out, put it back again, which is I guess it's the #1 bane of every small kitchen user, is the fact that multiple times a day, in order to get to the item that they want, they have to move 3 items that they're not needing to use. So to use clever storage systems is really important. And finally, and last but by absolutely no means least, is do create beauty. So beauty is not just for the large kitchen, beauty is also for the little kitchen. In fact, I would say it's almost more essential in bringing you a sense of calm and peace and desire to be in the space, that your small kitchen has a beauty of its own. Now, beauty comes in different forms. It can come by personalization. It can come by it being tidy. There are many ways, and I think as we touch on some of the photos, you'll see that there's some beauty in the photographs that follow. So let's look at some of the photographs then. So here I hope you can see a picture of just a full set of drawers. It's actually very well known that drawer storage is far more efficient than cupboard storage. There's a cost difference, of course, but the value of having a drawer over a door cupboard, where you have to open and reach in, or bend down and reach in and pull things out in order to see, I personally believe it's worth every extra penny you pay for the drawers. Obviously, this picture is not of a particularly small kitchen, but it's just the principle of how, when you open the drawers, you can see absolutely everything in. and they're so ergonomic to use. So not only can you see everything, but you can reach everything. It means that if food is going out of date, you can see that. You can see what's not used, bring it to the forward, to the front, whether you're using things for food or you're storing up pans. Definitely drawers instead of cupboards is a big thing for small spaces. With storage on doors like this, look at this lovely larder on the left from Simatic, who used the Multimatic tracking in the doors in order to position various different pieces of accessory onto the door depending on what you want. So it could be, as we see here, chopping board holders, or the towel rail holder, kitchen towel holder, etc. And personalizing your units is a fabulous way to arrange a kitchen. But for the small kitchen, think about the fridge for just one moment. In your kitchen, or in any kitchen, you would never expect to go to the fridge, open the door, and not find your milk, etc., actually sitting on the inside of the door. It's just, you wouldn't. Why? Because it's the easiest place. You go for the milk most, so you want it in a handy place. And not only that, but it's easier to for the depth of the rest of the fridge if that front portion is taken up by what's on the door, and then there's less in the back for you to have to move out. And exactly the same works for cupboards when you do have to use cupboards instead of drawers. If you utilize your door, the back of your door, instead of the inside of your cupboard, then you're making life so much easier for yourself. And in fact, Multimatic storage adds 30% extra storage into your unit, accessible storage, so it's a great way to go. Maybe you don't have Simatic cabinets or tall larders like this, but corners are definitely something which a small kitchen often has to face. And if you have a U-shaped small kitchen, then you're talking 2 corners. Now, corner storage is notoriously the worst space to look at in a kitchen, and often traditionally you'd had what we call blind corners, which is corners into an area with just shelves. So we all have known the scrabbling around with our knees on the floor, reaching into cupboards, wondering what's fallen down the back, and whether we can get to what we want and what we actually put in there anyway. And quite often these drawers are overloaded and really frustrating. So here's an example of a Le Mans unit, a kidney-shaped unit which swings out. It doesn't just swing out in part like the old carousel, it's completely out, so you get a pretty much 90% view of everything that's inside. It's a great use of corner space, as long as, of course, you're not wanting to put square, large objects in here, because the kidney bean shape, it's not so good for that. So everything needs thought, but it's great for circular items, either tins or tall pans, as displayed in here. There are many other ways to deal with corners in small kitchens. We haven't got time to talk about them all here, but just to mention that sometimes it's actually more efficient to lose what appears to be the corner space, take the corner cupboard away and use drawers as far up to the corner as you possibly can. It's often more efficient to do that than to actually use a corner unit, so consider that. Here's one of the smaller photographs from Pinterest that I mentioned earlier. So here's an example of where a boiler has been placed in the kitchen. And as we come along to do the kitchen, we may find that we can't move it. It's been put in there recently and we don't want to go to the cost of moving this boiler. But there are ways around utilising the space. And in this, I think, very clever way of doing it for a small space is a tambour unit. Pull up and down tambour unit has been created over the boiler area in combination with a lovely little neat area for putting the toaster and what looks like the blender and the microwave there, so that the tambour comes up and down and you can hide it away, because let's face it, this isn't the prettiest place in the kitchen. A lot of clutter. You can see all there, the coffee, tea and coffee all mounting up in front of the boiler, but why not use that space, and why not be able to just zip it all down at the end of the day, or when people come around, and shut it all out. So awkward spaces, kitchen spaces, tambas are a great little pull hideaway. So I wanted to show you this picture, this kitchen, to talk about simple lines. It's a very smooth looking kitchen. One of the things I love about this kitchen is it's in the two-tone, as we've discussed before. So we have the white cupboards with a wood finish on the floor, which is matched with the finish for the little breakfast bar and the work surface. So 3 of the surfaces are done in the wood and 1 in the white. Now this is fantastic because it means we're not trying to introduce 2 different wood grains or 2 different wood colours, keeping it really simple here. And on the back wall, yes, it has been painted charcoal grey, and that, I believe, just gives this a little bit of dimension in this kitchen. It could equally have been painted in white, but the charcoal gives it a sense of you coming through and looking directly to go straight out through that window. So the focus in this room is through the window, and the lines are simple. In this small kitchen, the use of mirrors is a really great idea. So they're at high level, so they're not actually going to interrupt at the lower level, you know, at your lower level and kind of create too much light. They're actually quite discreet, but being placed up high like this, I just think they're a great way of expanding the space, connecting the front and the back so that you can see what's going on in the other parts of the kitchen. And I'd just like to point out how the build down, if you can see my cursor moving across here, runs from the top of these units right away across to the center of this dividing wall, and the build down space here with the light on allows that simple line to run right across here. Really nice, simple finish in this kitchen, again using only 2 tones. In this kitchen, another example, and something that's really important for small kitchens is, one is using the height of the ceiling. Look at that, there's a beam running across just in front of the sink area, but we have height above right to the ceiling. So look how these lovely glass units are placed high, which match in with where that beam and almost distract from that beam altogether. And also look at the drop down table that's in this kitchen. So if there were 2 people, as we're talking, working in this kitchen in one go, there is the potential, if one's at the sink and one's at the hob, that you can just drop that little breakfast bar down and out of the way. I think that's a neat little trick there that's been done in this kitchen. Also love the way the lights are pulling down on that area and giving it a little bit of intimacy. As you can see, delicate knobs that tie in with the ovens, they don't distract. And even though this has got a shaker front rather than a flat fronted kitchen, so there are a few more lines to consider in this kitchen, because it's all in white, it minimises the look of the shaker and therefore creates less impact. So another neat little kitchen space. Now, here's one for the colourful amongst us. I think looking at this, one of the things I point out is there do seem to be 2 areas of focus, which is the wall and the floor. Both of them are very highly patterned. So I would be thinking we shouldn't have done, or it shouldn't have had this floor on it, but the wall is very impactful, creating one central piece of focus and the rest is in white, which is great. Nobody's overdone it by trying to do red units at the top and blue at the bottom, or red and this floral impact. This is a personalised, it's maybe someone's, you know, loves these colours and this pattern, so it's great. Look how the units run right up to the ceiling, and look at those lines running down. Note even the cross section of the top wall units run perfectly in line with the top of what appears to be a sliding door into the small kitchen area. And just to mention on that, sliding doors are fantastic for small kitchen spaces it prevents you having to open a door into an already small space. Look how the worktop here is uncluttered because the wall units have been raised up somewhat to allow for hanging of utensils and other storage items. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I love the way that runs around so neatly. And look at this kitchen here, a real pop of colour. This I'd call the Peninsula secret. The reason why I've said that is many people want an island in their kitchens these days, and the small kitchen just does not generally have the capacity for an island. But what it does have the capacity for is the peninsula, which is the island that joins the wall. And in this case, what a wonderful feature. So the peninsula has also become the breakfast bar, it's also the hob. And if you look carefully, you can see that the left-hand side of the peninsula, if you like, the down part of the C shape, is a hiding space for behind it. It could be a splashback. There could be hanging storage there for cutlery, for utensils, or there could be wall storage as well. So quite a little neat trick in that kitchen, which I think has been done really well. Note that there are compromises always. Here's a lovely freestanding item from Somatic based on the old dresser style in the kitchen, and the compromise would be no dishwasher. This stands on legs, so the dishwasher would go down to the ground. It's obviously a very tiny kitchen, so really suitable for an upmarket apartment kitchen, but it just goes to show what you can get into an extremely small space if you really need to. And finally, on the small kitchen, so that I've got time for the large kitchens and Q&A, is this beautiful kitchen. Maybe not as small as the others I've shown, but compared to some of the kitchens that you'll see later, is a relatively small kitchen, small but beautiful. I think you'll agree that most of the kitchens that we've seen, depending on your personality, have got beauty of their own for the user. This one here uses metals and textures. Look at the texture on the side of the worktop, on the walls, on the back splash there. Bringing texture into your kitchen instead of lots of colour will enhance the beauty of the kitchen and also allow you to create personalisation. So some amazing ideas, I think, for small kitchens. And I hope that some of you will be able to use some of those ideas in some of the projects that you're looking at, and we can certainly help you with those. So let's take a look at the large kitchens as well. So large kitchens, you'd think, wouldn't you, if you had a large kitchen, that your life was made, everything was easy, you could, it would be no problem at all. Well, here are the 4 things that people with large kitchens tell me that they really need, things that are important for them. Number 1 is flow. It's really important for the large kitchen to have free spaces, free meandering spaces that are purposeful and intuitive, and not only intuitive of their own purpose in the kitchen, but also from where they connect to other areas of the house. So connectivity is huge in a large kitchen. Otherwise, we have this great vacant area which stands alone, does everything you want it to, but has no bearing or resemblance on any other area of the house. And this would be terrible. It would be like walking, into a different century, for example. I love the fact that we're looking at connectivity, not just with the room itself, i.e. the structure of the room and how we connect with what's in the room at the shape of the room, but we're connecting with the people that are going to be in the room. So for the large kitchen, it's often all about the gathering, the entertaining, the family, and the connectivity is really important. So in the process of doing that, we need to be really clear on our zoning so that we have separate spaces for the multiplex of tasks that are going to be done in this one large space. Otherwise, it's going to appear vacuous, and we're not going to be able to get a handle, I suppose, on the area that we're feeling in. Final thing is that people want with a large kitchen is they want the ultimate wow factor. And why not? You have this wonderful, massive kitchen space, so many possibilities. It needs to be wow. That goes almost without saying. So the people with a large kitchen say to me, make it do everything. Or if they don't say it, they mean it. This has to be a multi-functioning, wowing, full achieving kitchen. And so just like the small one has to really work, this one has to work in a very different way. So let's take a look at my top do's for large kitchens. The first is to look at what the room is saying. I really believe a room speaks in terms of its architecture, its structure, how it's built together, where the windows and doors are positioned, how much light is coming in. So we're going to have a look at photographs to explain this, but what is the room saying? How is the room connected to other areas of the home? Can we change how it's connected to other areas? Does that need to be developed? Do we need to widen doorways so that, for example, you come in through a double door into a large kitchen from a hallway, which will bring so much more drama into your kitchen than if you just have a single door coming in? How is it connected and what is it connected to? Is it the gym? Is it the kids' playroom? Is it the dining room? Where is it connected to? Goes without saying, this area needs to have an uninterrupted flow for the chef. That's a standard. We like it for small kitchens. It's easier for big kitchens, a must. I say let the room breathe. By leaving areas of open space within a room, not cluttering it, not doing all round the base units, all round the top, stacked full of units. Let's let rooms breathe, and we'll see some examples of these. Because when we let the room breathe by giving it its own space, free space, where you don't have to put anything on the floor or on that wall, it's a much more pleasurable space to be in. I've already said before, we need to create distinctive zones for multiple activities. That's a do. But finally, and quite in contrast with a small kitchen, we can play with the colour, tone and texture in a large kitchen so much more. We may not want to. We may go with a house brief, and if it's more minimalist, we may not want to do that. But certainly in a large room, we've got great capacity for picking up on colour and tone and texture. Let's have a look at some photographs. And as I said, these are thematic brochures, some amazing shots. This was, when I first walked into this kitchen, I was absolutely overawed with it because I fell in love with the symmetry in this kitchen. And initially you might say, what symmetry? I can't see any. But I want to talk about how we work with the room dynamics using this picture. As you'll see, it's essentially a dark room because there's only one window coming in. But with a dark room, it's great to create drama, and drama's been created here by using the dark and the light contrast. And but let's look at the room. So if we look at the area at the hob, we can see a lovely symmetry around the hob. So we have one set of drawers either side of the hob. But the room is not shaped like that. The room is shaped separately. So you see how cleverly it's been done that the splashback that's above the drawers sets where your eye goes to so that it appears symmetrical when in fact there's extra wall white space where the run is to the right. But we don't necessarily immediately see that when we walk in because of how cleverly the splashback has been positioned. Likewise, because the window is not necessarily symmetrical to that whole wall, we've created two areas of symmetry here, or two separate zones. On the right, to the right-hand side of the window, you have this double door glass with double door drawer units underneath. And that creates a symmetry all of its own in that little grouping. Whereas to the left and under the window, we have a run of 4 doors and drawers above, which creates itself another area of symmetry, and the sink is positioned in the middle. So whilst the whole wall itself is not symmetrical on this side, if we take a cut through across here, we're creating these lovely little areas where the lines are beautifully coordinated. And on the other side of the room, we've almost got a reverse effect. So whereas this was the larger part and this is a smaller area, here we have a larger area, and again, beautiful symmetry with 2 glass drawers, 2 glass, and then the fridge on this side. And because the fridge is stainless steel and wants to shout out on its own because it has beauty of its own, it's separated by these walls rather than being juxtapositioned to a unit. So we're segmenting our kitchen into proportional segments in order to create a symmetry which otherwise would not necessarily have been noticed in this room, and actually it forms a backdrop, but it makes this a beautiful kitchen. You can see, even with this large kitchen, there's probably not real room for an island as we would know it, a workstation island, but look how the use of the table is positioned in here. So you can imagine either an old cottage table, oak table in a farmhouse, or this table here, how well it works in this space. So even the large kitchens have their challenges. Establishing zones, look at this kitchen here, which has 3 distinct zones: the kitchen, the dining, the comfy sofa. Again, each area being distinctive. We've got a beam in the middle of this room, and this is one of the things that large kitchens have to deal with, is beams in potentially awkward places. But when you first look at this room, it's not the beam you necessarily see, because the drama is going on in 3 different places and taking your eye well away from the beam, which takes a back look. Here we have a connectivity. A great example of connectivity is using shelving to enter new zones. So we have shelving in the kitchen in 2 areas, and the shelving is entering through floating spaces, in this case on the panelled walls, into the rest of the kitchen, and it's transitioning from, say, cookbooks and kitchen items to more items of beauty and personal interest, vases and other such ornaments. Here you can see really obviously that the chef's space has been guarded. Beautiful large kitchen here. It's worth noting what happens with ceilings in these kitchens. You can expand the kitchen, use the kitchen ceiling to expand or contract the space. In this case, it's been contracted over this mezzanine level, but the build down has carried on to form a sofa or a seating area, bench seat area, which creates these beautiful linear lines. A rather stunning kitchen here. Again, using the principles of symmetry, segmentation, because you can use, you've got free space occurring here. You didn't have to, but you could have joined them up, but this free space actually creates these different areas of interest. Here's another room that's been allowed space to breathe. Freestanding unit. This is the same buffet we saw before in the smaller kitchen, but again, this forms just a tiny part of the kitchen. But we have freestanding tall units here. In a small kitchen, that would be such a travesty, not to use the worktop space, but in a large kitchen, this becomes an area of a pause moment. There's a light shining on not much, you know, maybe something that's almost insignificant, but it creates an area of beauty with all these open spaces and pool spaces. You can also have multi-heights because your eye can focus on many things at one go. There's a lot that you could focus on in this room. Upstairs, the bureau, the multi-levels, the herb garden, the oven, the sink area, all lots of focus, but because it's such a large room and you've allowed it space to breathe, there's plenty of space to do that. Again, here in this room, you can, it's so simple, been done so simply using mono colours, just the black and the white, grey. If you like, the feature of this wonderful swirling staircase in white is so dramatic, but as is these beautiful slatted glass units as you walk into the room, as is this beautiful overstretched, floating hung hob area. I mean, it just speaks extravagance. And again, these wall units which have been floated, tall units which have been floated off the floor mid-height, you could say that in itself was an area of focus. So this area is punched with focus on the right, in the middle, on the left and above. And it can do so, one, because you're keeping a minimal colour palette, and two, because the room is so bright and large. Clever corners aren't just for small kitchens. Look at the way this large kitchen on the extremities, all the corners have got open units or open shelves. Just a really nifty little design. It reminds me of like a revolving cube. You kind of feel like you want to spin this kitchen and see the other side. I love the use of handles in this kitchen. Less popular these days to use handles, but in a kitchen like this, it almost exaggerates the linear lines and the corners by having these wonderful slim handles, which creating this lovely L-shaped kitchen. So it's very rare to see a kitchen shaped like this with a hob on one corner in the middle of the room. I love it. And just to show you the other side of this, that's the view from, if you like, outside in. So again, extravagance. Large kitchens can have bookcases, which you would never get in smaller kitchens, areas of for objects of beauty and personalization, which are really important. And once again, you can see the zoning with the low level seating and the small coffee table lounge area here. And the kitchen itself with a guarded space between here and here. So it's been a quick rush through photographs, I know, but lots of ideas for large kitchens and ways that you can do things to the max so that these kitchens have identity, personality, but they're really working to the max. I'm going to see if you have any questions. Just going to see if there's anything appeared on the chat, because I really want to give you a chance to have your talk here coming through. Yeah, great question here from Susie about soundproofing in an open plan kitchen. One of the things that you will notice about a large kitchen is that the acoustics, especially if you're having tiled floors, stone worktops, maybe even stone or glass splashbacks, potentially no window dressing at all, large patio doors, so lots of glass, is that we've got so many hard surfaces that we've got noise and clatter with chairs, etc. So yeah, I recommend soundproofing in lots of different ways. One of the things you can do is bring wood into the kitchen. Wood is obviously going to absorb the sound far better than some work surface, than hard work surfaces. So getting wood in there either on bar tables, tabletops, bar stools, ledges, any which of those would be a great idea. And the other thing that you can do is put artwork on the wall, which is made of canvas, large canvas, anything that will absorb sound. Seating areas, make sure that, say, your bar stools, for example, are made of fabric rather than hard materials. That would be very helpful in just taking some of that sound away. If you've got sofas, consider what they're made of, you know, nice soft sofas, extra cushions, anything that you can bring into like that would be great. Obviously, appliances these days are very quiet. The decibels of appliances are coming down and down and down. So things like, you know, extractor fans, making sure that you have the highest efficiency extractor fan that you can possibly have. Therefore, when you're using it, you're not using it on max, you're using it on a lower sound level to get the result you need. That would be another way that you could reduce the noise coming out of your kitchen. So lots of little things you could do besides obviously doing acoustic paneling, acoustic boarding. And one of the things which is quite popular at the moment is wooden walls. So either wooden slatted walls or some kind of wooden paneling wall. So any of those things would help you reduce noise in your kitchen. Anybody else got any thoughts out there? I'm just looking to see.
Long, narrow kitchens.
Okay, so I've got one coming in. Any tips on long, narrow kitchens? Again, that depends a lot on whether that long, narrow kitchen has a window at the end or door at either end. But essentially, if you're restricted by your, I wish I'd put a photograph on there, which of course, I had to use some photographs and delete some photographs, which I did, and I had a great picture of a very long, narrow kitchen. One of the things that would be important would be to make sure that whoever's, if you've got the hob one side, say, and the sink the other side, if it's a two-sided kitchen, that they're not opposite each other. So if you've got two people working opposite each other at a stay point, which would be something like a hob, or maybe a dishwasher, that they don't open out into each other and you cause this big jam in the middle. So you'd move them from side to side, or maybe have them both on one length. Other ideas for long kitchens would be to make sure that you use the visual effect of bringing that kitchen more horizontal than, more square than elongated, using colours to bring in the walls so that you've got a visual effect of not wanting to look too far. Those I think are I mean, I'd need to probably look at an individual kitchen to say, because they're all so unique. But there are plenty of ideas if you take a long kitchen for how you can wriggle things around and play with the room appearance. Also, you don't want to be walking too far. You want to minimise how far you've got to walk from A to B. So it's whether you have something at one end that stops people going in too far and interrupting your space. That's a real key thing for a long galley kitchen, is if someone's in your space, you tend to chase them around the kitchen continually. So you want to keep people out. So putting barriers up is another important thing for a long kitchen. Another question.
Our kitchen may well have two separate stations departing from the religious triangular connectivity. Are rules meant to be broken?
So our kitchen may have two separate stations and departing from the regularity of one island, etc. And are rules meant to be broken? My husband gives a resounding yes to that. If you mean the triangle rule, you know, the working triangle in the kitchen, I would say most definitely. I mean, what we want, the rule of thumb for a kitchen is it needs to be pleasant to work in and pleasant to look at, beautiful to look in, wonderful to work at. And And so the working triangle does not work best in every kitchen. What's important is what it is that you want to achieve in your kitchen, and having two separate zones. So maybe an island which has the sink and everything to do with water and prep is done on that island, and maybe you have the hob on another. I mean, a fantastic kitchen. The luxury is that is great. What I would say is avoid things like putting the fridge in a part of the kitchen where it's less easily accessible by people who just want to drink. So putting your fridge or fridge on the perimeter near to the people who are, say, at the breakfast bar or going to grab the drinks is an important key if you're doing this separate zoning. So just watch out for that. Make sure that when the passageways through are visually proportioned so that it's smaller to walk through if it's going to be the working space, and larger if it's going to be the visitor space, because what you'll find is the visitor will naturally take the easiest, widest option. So we need to guide them visually by creating the wider space is the place that they go round, and the smaller place is the place we nip into to do our work. So I'd say yes, break the rules, but make sure the end result doesn't leave you lacking in some area. Any more questions?
Any thoughts on kitchen extraction of an island in a large open plan kitchen?
So a question on kitchen extraction over an island in a large kitchen. Wow. To be honest, extraction is a whole separate topic, and it'd be really interesting to understand a bit about what your needs are behind that comment. But without knowing that, what I'd say is there's a number of choices with regard to extraction. One is the traditional build-down extractor, which we have coming down and over the island. Now, the con of that, if you like, the negative one of that, is that it can impede a view to something. So for example, if you've got patio doors and you want to see outside, and you've got a large extractor bulkhead potentially in the way because you want to bring it down, that's not so good if the view of your garden is something that you have as a priority. On the other hand, if you are someone who does a lot of Asian cooking, you need to have an extremely efficient and powerful extractor which is coming down low over your cooking zone. And for example, you may have a gas hob, so we're talking, flame here. You might be wokking things. You may say it's actually more important that I have an efficient extractor to take the grease quickly away than it is for me to see what's going on in the garden. And who does it inhibit on the way? Who does this, what visual impact does this have on the kitchen as a whole? There are some fantastic extractors. There are extractors that move up and down. So, if you've got someone taller and someone shorter in the kitchen, there are some that move up and down to cope with that. And of course, you've got extractors that come from the ceiling that are recirculating extractors that actually look like beautiful lampshades. So obviously these are less efficient because they're not ducted out. But if you have a home where you want to reduce the amount of air extraction, then this could be a necessary option for you. So having those kind of extractors and then looking like chandeliers could be a beautiful option for your kitchen. You could have two extractors instead of the one, for example. But don't forget, you've got the hobs that now extract downdraft out, either recirculating or downdraft, or going outside and vented outside the house. So then you've got a hob with its own ventilation system, and you don't need anything above whatsoever. In between are the rising or up and down extractors which move away but come up. And again, some people like those because they form a kind of a splash guard if people are sitting on the other side, and if the island is perhaps slightly narrower, you may want to have that as a splash guard. So there are lots of choices on extractor, and it will be a matter of talking about priorities for you once again. Any more? Two more questions.
I think I missed about power sockets, how they're dealt with. Kitchens all look really sleek. Hiding toasters in a cupboard with roller shutters is a genius idea. What's the best way to deal with sockets on walls, flashing worktops pop up?
Okay, someone's given me a great Colin's given a great question with regard to sockets. And sockets on islands, I think in particular, is that right?
Well,
you know, I would imagine particularly on islands, but anywhere actually. So socket solutions for islands. Yes, we need power to our island. Otherwise, what's going to happen when we want to, you know, blend the soup that we're cooking, or etc. Or maybe we're going to use our processor on the island. So lots of ways we can deal with that. One of them is to have a pop-up socket which rises and falls on the center of the island. That needs to go into a cupboard area rather than a drawer, because obviously the drawer will not open if you have the base of the socket going into it. Or it could go into a niche. If you've got some kind of bar stool area at the back, you can create a false wall, and then you can have a socket. Just got to make sure it's not too close to the sink, to the hob, and to the water. But yes, that can be done, and of course they can have charging systems for your iPhone, etc. The other thing is a switch over, like a push and turn socket which sits neatly in the island, and it flips. So it's normally just shut, and it can have either a stainless steel finish, a glass finish, or a stone finish. And you just press it, and that again will turn and reveal socket holes for you. If you don't have the space in the island for that, or don't have a desire to change, to have cutouts in the island, because you would have to cut out your stone, then you may well be able to fit them onto the end of the island. Perhaps if you have a waterfall down stand in stone, or even in your panels at the end, lacquer or laminate panels, we can cut out and place a socket in there. Again, we have to avoid positioning of drawers, but there's always a place. Obviously, there are other areas around the kitchen where you might want to have sockets. You could have a socket placed in the back of a tool cupboard, so that you can put your freestanding microwave inside your cupboard. That gives people the advantage of having to buy only a cheap freestanding microwave for something they might only perhaps reheat coffee once a day, or a cup of tea once a day or something, and not want to go to the expense of buying a built-in microwave. So by putting sockets in the back of the cupboard, that would do. And of course, there's light profile shelves that have sockets attached to them. So then if you've got glass splashbacks or stone splashbacks, you can keep that black back splashback really nice and sleek and clear from sockets by having the sockets integrated into your lights that are actually giving task lighting onto your work surface. So tons of great light switch ideas. So thank you for that question.
Last question.
And then last question.
From Colin again. Any thoughts on installing 2 dishwashers? It would seem sensible to use them as cupboards, which also wash. That way eliminate the reloading, unloading of cupboards. Is this a daft idea?
Yeah. So the potential idea of having 2 dishwashers instead of 1, so that if in effect one is used as a cupboard, so you don't have to keep unloading unloading. Yes, not a daft idea at all, Colin. Has been done many times. And for people who, like you say, would like to use it as a storage cupboard, and when that's empty, you move on to the next one, and then it kind of goes into a cycle. It's a great idea. Obviously, you've got to have the luxury of a large kitchen to be able to do that. And But sometimes one of the things that will stop people having that is that because we want to try and group all of the washing appliances together, so the sink and the dishwashers together, and we may want to be doing that on an island. One of the things that may stop people is stone only comes in a maximum size before you have to have a join. And so again, it's a play-off in some clients in that they want 2 dishwashers, but they don't want to join in the stone, and all of these appliances want to be grouped together. So then if you have the 2 dishwashers, and you need the bin, and you need the sink unit, and maybe you want the hob, and by the time you've added up all these extra units that are going in the same place, your island has become so big it has to have a join. So there are things to consider as to why you may not be able to, it might not be your priority, but it's a great luxury, and I would go for it if you can. Well, loads of questions. I really want to thank everybody for their questions, because hopefully your question has really just basically answered a question that somebody else already had anyway, which is the lovely nature of questions. There isn't any daft question. They're all good questions. So thank you so much for all of those. And I hope that both the talk and some of the answers have been helpful to you. This session has been really good for anyone who's been looking at large and small kitchens, but next time on the 29th of July we're going to be doing another talk, and I should be giving a talk on the top 5 things every kitchen should have. Now, it's my top 5 things, but I'm sure that if you listen to it, you'll find that it's probably going to be your top 5 things as well. And it'd be great to see you again then at 7:30 on the 29th of July. In between then, for those of you who are new to the design talks, you may want to download our trend report from the website. If you go onto the Myers Touch website, www.themyerstouch.co.uk, on our homepage, you'll see a little download button. The trend report is there for interior ideas for your kitchen living spaces, helpful yearly report that you may find useful when you're doing your projects. The other thing that may be of use to you is during this period where we're not, I mean, the showroom's open, but people aren't getting as much access as they would do normally to showroom studios. Both Keith and I and all the design team are giving free half-an-hour consultations to anybody who's interested in talking to us about the early stages of their project. We've actually probably not got any spaces left for July now. I think we're looking at booking up August, but if any of you out there would like to talk to us about what's going on in your project, then those half-an-hour slots can easily be booked by just emailing us at design@themyerstouch.co.uk. So thank you all so much for listening. Any more questions will be welcome, because I will compile them and we'll try to deal with them in another talk some other time. So keep them coming, and thank you very much for joining me tonight.